Today we're going to take a look at the Anker 757, a power station I hauled into my cabin and used off-grid for 2 months. We're going to see, is this 42-pound behemoth worth hauling around? Is the wattage up to par? Was the price worth it? And are there better options out there? Spoiler alert, there might be. All right, so let's take a look at the specs. First off, absolute battery capacity, 1229 watt hours, which is not an insignificant amount for something this size. Depending on where you look, it could be 1500 or 1800 running watts. I was able to get just over 1600 watts out of this, so I'm thinking it's closer to 1800. Max surge capacity is 2400. Plug in the wall power with an AC adapter, you can get 80% charge in just about an hour. This can be used as an uninterruptible power supply, although there's way cheaper options out there and I wouldn't want to use this beast just for that. Comes with a 5-year warranty, although I struggled to find real specifics on what that meant on Anker's website. It's got a built-in light right there, which I used to make fun of until I really started taking these camping and being off-grid, and all of a sudden I realized how much I love a stupid little built-in LED light on all of these. It's got 13 ports total. DC port, 100 watt USB-C, 60 watt USB-C, 1, 2, 3, 4 USB-A ports, and 1, 2, 3 ungrounded, and 1, 2, 3 grounded AC ports. You can get up to 1000 watt input for charging, or up to 300 watt input for solar charging, and 120 watt input for DC charging. And what I liked about this is you can combine solar and DC. So if you happen to have access to both in an area, you could speed it up just a little bit. It's right around 18 long, 11 deep, and 9 high. So let's talk about the good. It has a very bright display that you can see even in direct sunlight. Tons of ports, 13. I've never maxed it out. The high capacity, love it. Well over 1200 watt hours. You can run this for quite some time. I was mainly using this for my Starlink, and this would have ran my Starlink for 4 to 5 days, depending on how much I used it. Mainly my Starlink was for about 4 hours in the evening. It has a LiFePO4 battery, which has become standard in any decent battery bank now. And the handles right here make it easy to carry with 2 hands. Because at 42, 43 and a half pounds, that can be an issue. I found the easiest way to carry this was to throw it up on my shoulder and carry it down the hill. I felt like it balanced better than having it in your lower back by holding it with your hands. Let's talk about the bad. And unfortunately, there's a lot of bad to talk about. First off, this thing is heavy. Like, I mean really heavy. To the point where if it were even 10 pounds heavier, you wouldn't want to take it anywhere. To the point where most people are going to want to use a furniture cart to move this around, to the point where I didn't want to carry it down the hill to charge it on my inverter from my truck. That kind of heavy. It doesn't like charging on inverters, at least non-clean inverters. I bought a 1500 watt, 3000 watt max regular inverter from Harbor Freight. This pulled more than 1000 watts out of it, and at that point the power got dirty enough that this wouldn't charge off it. This does not have Bluetooth. I used to joke Bluetooth was every bit as much as, oh, what a stupid LED light. For me, and for other people, I'm going to guess, if you're using this in a cabin as a power source, and you're using your Starlink internet in the evening, the last thing you want to do is leave this thing on and drain it throughout the night via either phantom charges or the fact that you forgot to turn off your Starlink. Now, the easiest way to be able to make sure you've turned it off and control it is while you're laying in bed on your phone, log into your Bluetooth and say, shut down. Not everybody's going to need it, but I'm going to tell you, when I was using my Blue Eddy with Bluetooth and I thought, I don't need this, and then I got out to the cabin, I do, and a lot of other people are going to as well. When you leave the AC port turned on like this, there's a fair bit of phantom drain to the point where I was losing 10 to 15% during the day if I forgot to turn it off. There's no customizable settings with this whatsoever. This is a dumb smart machine. All it has is a single pinhole for reset. You can't access any charging speeds, anything like that, which means there's no way to make it customizable. And the problem I ran into was I wanted to be able to charge it on my inverter. At first, I only had an 800 watt inverter. I would have loved to have been able to pull this back so that it would only charge at, say, 400 to 500 watts. Not even an option. Frustrating. Solar was significantly slower than they said it would be. I understand you're not going to get 300 watts of solar. You're going to get less than that, but this charged significantly slower than the slightly smaller Blue Eddy I was using as well. Is the biggest problem I have with this. This machine suffers from an identity crisis. And what do I mean by that? Well, I literally mean that Anker calls it 3 different things depending on where you look it up on their website. They call it a Solix, they call it an M1200, they call it an Anker 757, they call it a powerhouse. Which one is it? I'm not sure. I'm guessing that I managed to get one of the earlier models and that they've upgraded, but that's a real problem. Also, on the identity crisis end of things, it's listed at 1500 watts and 1800 watts. Not sure why they did that. And finally, one of the biggest pains in the butt is the solar voltage. On the back of this, if you look at the actual specs, it says 11 to 30 volts. You can't get a lot of solar panels for below 30 volts like that, unless of course you buy their standard foldable solar panels. However, if you look it up on the internet, their specs now listed at 60 volts. So what's going on, Anker? Here's the biggest problem I have. I've always loved Anker. I would like more data. I would like customization. I would like a Bluetooth. Now, let me show you what I think is a better option. Every single time I was at the cabin was reaching for this guy instead. Why? Because it had more information, because it had Bluetooth, because it was easier to carry up and down the hill, and because overall it was just a better machine. So $750 for this, or you could buy 2 of these for $860. So for $110 more, you get 1,536 watt hours instead of 1,229. So 330 more watt hours with this. This guy weighs in at 43 pounds. These weigh in at 22.5. So for 2 extra pounds, 110 extra dollars, you could have 2 Blue Eddies and extra power. Now, the problem is I love Anker products. I always have. This is built well, but in this instance, Anker, you have really disappointed me. I paid over $1,000 Canadian for this, thinking this was going to be my answer, and I'm not happy with it. Simple as that. I don't put out a lot of negative reviews simply because I do a ton of research beforehand. This ended up being a surprise for me. As a present, it works. You could use it, but it is not up to Anker standards. Simple as that. So, if you're looking for the real answer, the Blue Eddy AC70 for me is what I ended up going back to every single time at the cabin. So if you've stuck around to the end of this video, I made this video just for you. So hit the subscribe button and stick around because I got a ton more. And if you're like, well, Tim, I'd like to see how good that is really, well, check out when I made a pot of coffee off this with this video right here. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.